channel. So my name is Mariam. If you're new to this channel, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. I've got lots of new content that's coming up and a whole new series of interviews that I'm going to be doing and talking about, so stay tuned. So this video is about getting a registrar job. So I've just finished getting registrar jobs in anaesthetics to start ST3 in February. So I'm going to talk to you about that interview process. So things that we're going to cover today are just some general points in terms of what the interview process involves, the timeline of events that you need to keep your eye on, the self-assessment score, how to prepare prior to interview, and then the interview process itself. So please stay tuned. I'm also going to be putting timestamps along this video, so they're down in the comments below. So what that means is that you can just skip to the section that you want to watch instead of going through the whole video, which I think will be quite useful. So this video is going to be in two parts. So I'm going to talk about the portfolio and then I'm going to talk about the interview process. So I think they are two kind of separate because it's too much information to go through. So the first point to make is it's a national recruitment process. So national recruitment, what does that mean? You might get interviewed at a certain selection centre. You can pick which selection centre, but you might actually end up working in another region that's different to the selection centre you've been interviewed at. So for example, I was interviewed in Birmingham, which is the West Midlands, and I'm going to start registrar jobs in the East Midlands. So that's kind of an idea, but I could have started if I wanted to in London or up in Edinburgh, etc. Number two is that there are two intakes. So there's a February intake and also a August intake. So the February intake is the one that I'm going to start in, but there is also August intake, which is usually has more slots available, and also a lot more people apply for that intake. I think anaesthetics is quite unique in terms of having a February intake. I don't think there are many other specialties. I can't think of any at the moment on the top of my head that have a Feb intake as well. So one thing to note is that there are more CT1 or core training jobs than there are ST3 jobs, but the core training jobs are more competitive to get into essentially. So even though there are less jobs at registrar level, it's not as hard to get into it. It's still hard, but it's just not as hard. And then finally, there are some key resources, again, which I'll link down below, that you need to be aware of. So there's the ANRO website, so that's the Anaesthetic National Recruitment website, which has the applicant handbook, essential read, 100%. There's a scoring system, which I'll talk to you more about later on. And then there's the personal specifications that you also need to look at and be aware of. And then of course there is the actual self-assessment score. So number two, we're going to talk about timelines. So as I said, there's two intakes, February and August. So I'll start off with the February intake. So the timings and the dates differ each year, but in terms of the months, they're usually quite similar. So the February intake, the application was open in July, right at the end of July, and that closed in mid-August. The interviews themselves were across September, and then offers were given in the first week of October. And then the intake, you actually start your job at the start of February. So this year it should be the 5th of February. So in terms of the August intake, that's quite different. So applications open at the end of January. The interviews themselves are across March and April, and then the offers are later on in April, and then you actually start the job in August. So it's just to be aware, all this information you can find on the ANRO website. Again, that's linked down below. So make sure you keep up to date because no one will remind you, you just need to remind yourself. So what is really important is the self-assessment score. So the self-assessment score is a document which you can find online. I'll link down below because it's changed for 2019. So make sure you look at the new one, not the old one. And if you had completed core training in anaesthetics, you'll find it's similar to that. So what that is it's a score which it's widely available online, which you can rank yourself just to find out what you're going to score in terms of your portfolio. So there's different sections for that. So in terms of, there's undergraduate training, so additional degrees, which there's nothing you can do about. It's whether you've got that degree or not. There's prizes and awards in undergraduate training. There's postgraduate medical education, postgraduate medical qualifications, there's postgraduate clinical experience, there's clinical governance, audit and quality improvement, research, teaching, publications, presentations, training courses that you've been on, and then activities outside of medicine. So now I'm going to talk about how to prepare prior to interview. So whilst you're working, there's lots of things that you can actually get involved in to help you score maximum on that self-assessment score, but also to help you gain experience to talk about certain things at interview. So for example, in my region in East Midlands, they ran a leadership and management course. That's a postgraduate course which goes through different techniques for leadership and management in the workplace, but also how you can apply that professionally to your actual job, to work with peers, but also with seniors, etc. So I think that is excellent because you can talk about leadership, you can talk about management skills, and how you've applied that to your everyday job, but also it shows that you've gone out of your way to go and gain an extra, not so much qualification, but extra education for yourself. So the other thing you can do is audits. So within anaesthetic training, you have to anyway complete an audit a year. So in your core training 1, your core training 2, and then if you do a core training 3 as ACCS. So my advice is to get the higher points is to close those audit loops. So to get the higher points, I'm just looking down at my computer because I've made notes. You have to have closed the loop on 2 audit cycles and also presented one nationally or internationally. So examples of places that I've presented nationally or that I think people can present nationally are OAA, Age, Anaesthesia or DAS. But there's a whole website, or you can just Google information, but you can get literally a website that tells you different places where you can present your audits, which I think is excellent because you can gain the higher points. You put so much effort into performing the audit, it's quite a big cycle, and you might as well get the points for it. And just a note, to close the cycle, you just have to complete a re-audit of the audit you started. You can get involved in research. So that was a section of the portfolio that I actually really struggled with in core training, to get higher marks in research. But to get involved in research, we do research all the time as junior doctors. So if you are in any journal clubs, if you present there, so you've critically appraised a paper, you presented at a journal club, that's actually research. You've read some research, looked into it, talked about the benefits and actually some issues with that research, and you've critically appraised it and presented it. That is absolutely some research, and you might be able to get some points for that. The other thing is, a lot of the time we have patients that are recruited into studies whilst we're at work. So we're at work and maybe some research nurses will come and ask you to take some bloods for a lady that has consented to be part of a study. What you need to do is get your supervisor or your consultant to acknowledge that you've been involved in helping that process in that research. So just ask them to write a little note saying that you've been involved in actually not recruiting the patient, but performing the bloods, which is part of the actual research project. Another thing is that we've got a national body of research for trainees, so it's called RAFT, which is called Research and I forgot what it's called. I forgot what it stands for, but I'll write it down below. But the RAFT projects is like a national federation for trainees for research. I think that's what it stands for actually. And actually there's lots of projects which you can get involved in your region, in your area. So the last thing is teaching. So you can organise some teaching. You can actually teach to your peers. You can teach to some medical students, but you can also do a sort of teaching project. So you can run a teaching course for any level. So whether it's medical finals, whether it's a teaching course for maybe an exam that you've just completed, or it doesn't even have to be an exam, it could be teaching on, I don't know, medical photography, anything that you're interested in. It's actually quite good to get involved in teaching, and you could do that at a regional level or even a national level. A regional level is much easier because you can, because we rotate as junior doctors, you can run this teaching course at these different hospitals that you rotate to, and actually that is actually a regional teaching. Publications. So publications is so difficult to get. Examples of places where you can try and get publications, then they are looking all the time for articles, are Anaesthesia News, BJA, and then don't forget your abstracts. So abstracts for conferences count as publications because they get published on their website. So the ones are accepted. So make sure that you screenshot that page. I don't know if I said that right. So make sure that you take a screenshot of that page and put that within your portfolio. But I'll talk to you more about that in the portfolio. Training courses, you need to make sure that you do at least 2 to 3 training courses within your anaesthetic training. So within core training, make sure you complete ALS, if you have to recertify, ATLS, APLS, utilise your study budget and just claim back for those. But there's a wealth of different training courses which you can do. And then finally, try and get involved in activities that are outside of medicine, and these actually count things like being mess president, being a core training rep, or being a representative for a society or taking leadership in a society role, all actually count as activities outside of medicine, as well as if you can get involved in any sports, or if you like cooking, if you like photography, anything actually counts. So the interview process itself. So with the interview, we have 3 stations. There is the portfolio station, which is 10 minutes. 10 minutes for them to go through your portfolio and check your self-assessment score, and then 10 minutes for them to ask you questions. And then we have the presentation station. So that's 10 minutes to prepare. That's in a separate room. You prepare your presentation, they give you a topic, and then you have 5 minutes to go in separately and present your presentation, and then 5 minutes that they will ask you around the subject of the presentation. And then finally is the clinical scenario. So this is a 10-minute station. They will give you a clinical scenario outside. You'll have a couple of minutes to read it, and then you have to go in and present what you feel is what you would do as your management steps. Very, very key document. I'll see if I can get a picture up here, but if not, I will link it down below. But there's a key document which tells you how they score every single station. So each station is marked out of 10. That is composed of 2 interviewers, which will give you a mark out of 5 to give an overall mark out of 10. And then you will get a global rating score from each interviewer as well, again out of 5, which makes 10 for the 2. So this document essentially shows you how they mark each station, which I think is invaluable. If you know how they're going to mark you, then you can actually try and just give them what they want. They make it very easy for you. So for the clinical scenario station, which I think on this document is named clinical interview, the only marks are in decision making and team working, and then working under pressure. So if you think about it, every single scenario that you're going to practice before the interview, think about it in those 3 domains. How have I shown that I can work under pressure? How have I shown team working? And how have I shown decision making? And actually that makes it really easy because each examiner is going to mark you out of 5, and then they will give you an overall mark for each component out of 10 with the 2 combined. And then overall for the clinical scenario is going to be out of 50. Then we move on to the portfolio station. Again, that is out of 50. You are going to get a mark for commitment specialty, a mark for organisation, and then a mark for reflective practice. Easy again. You can show organisation through how you organise your portfolio. You can also show commitment specialty in terms of what you've done during your core training years or your ACCS years. And then you can also show reflective practice through a special section which I'll show you in the portfolio in another video that shows how you do your reflections, etc. And then with the portfolio station, you actually get an extra 50 marks for the content of your portfolio, and that is the self-assessment score, and they will just check if they agree with what you've self-assessed. Finally, in terms of the presentation station, that is marked out of 50 again, so that is marked on communication, it's marked on organisation, and then it's marked on working under pressure. Easy marks. Presentation on working under pressure, they usually they might twiddle their thumbs, they might not look at you, they're trying to put you under pressure when you are presenting to them to see how you cope under pressure. Anaesthetics is a high pressure environment. All the time you're working in emergencies, etc. And actually you need to be able to work under pressure. My experience when I did registrar jobs was overall really good, really positive. Obviously I was so scared before I went in, I was so scared, but actually I can't share because it's not fair what I was asked, but what I can tell you is that going through the mark scheme and practicing, asking other people what they got asked in previous years is really helpful, but actually just going through the mark scheme and knowing the mark scheme helps you immensely in terms of doing well. That's it. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be bringing you lots more content, lots more videos, so please keep watching.